you had to rely on people going back to the West Indies and sneaking in the pigeon peas. We sit and we have these big belly laughs that is just so liberating.
Yes.
Buried the afterbirth under that mahogany tree, and here I am.
Come. Y'all know how the thing's set up. Subscribe to the channel, share with your family and friends, comment on this video, tell everybody about Global Gyal because we are getting to 1,000 subscribers in the next couple of weeks. Are y'all with me? Good. This week, Global Gyal is back in New Zealand. We're talking to another Caribbean person who's sharing their amazing story about how they end up in a whole New Zealand coming from where they come from. So y'all sit back, relax, grab your popcorn, and let's do this. Everybody, welcome to Global Gyal. I'm here in New Zealand, and I am having the ultimate pleasure of being with Félise du Chateau.
That's it.
Félise is from Guyana and she lives in New Zealand. How long have you been in New Zealand?
I came here in 1971.
And as soon as I heard that, I said, I have to meet this woman. I have to hear her story. As soon as I walked in her house, she barely even said hi. She's just like, I'm feeding you. And I was like, yes, Caribbean people. So I just wanted to start off. It's really just hearing your life story, your childhood. Were you born in Guyana?
Yes, I was born in Guyana. I am a product of slavery stock. My mom and my dad met and they couldn't speak each other's language, but here I am. So love is the international language.
Yes. You were born in the forest. Are you talking literally, or that's just where your house was?
Well, my family had a timber plantation, a mahogany plantation, and I'm talking forest. The house was a banab. It was up in the tree, and you had to let a rope down and climb up. Yes.
Every day.
To
and from to enter your house.
To enter the house and make sure that nothing in there was an uninvited guest, like a big fat snake.
Ooh, yes, Guyana we talking.
Yes.
Guyana we talking.
To get to our plantation, it took 3 days on the river by canoe. We're talking a very large river.
Yes.
Okay. So my mom is traveling on the river, in the middle of the river. My daddy, who was a chef, was in the city. And mommy knew that she was due with me. So she sent a message for my daddy to come home. So she travels down the river, and apparently she says she was groaning from the pain because I decided I was going to come early. And the women who were working as the cooks on the plantation in the forest could hear her. And so they stood on the side of the river and allowed her to come in, pulled her up, and I went, hello, here I am, under a mahogany tree. She reckons that is my life. She says, you do everything in a hurry. You didn't give anybody any chance.
Any warning, nothing.
Buried the afterbirth under that mahogany tree, and here I am. Wow. My sister and I grew up, and then I was put into an orphanage.
Oh, you were in Georgetown?
In Georgetown. Those times were extremely hard when my mom, who was a negress, married I know that word shouldn't be said these days, but that's what I grew up with. So there's no harm meant to people when I say negress, okay? She married a white man, and there was a lot of controversy about that.
Yeah.
So when my daddy died, my mother was ostracized. So she had to put me where I could be fed. But the interesting thing is that a very good friend of hers, and she came and took me out of the orphanage and took me to Buxton to live. And I grew up in Buxton. So I grew up in the country again.
Okay.
With a coal pot, and splitting Wallaby wood.
Yes.
And the kitchen is outside. I bathed down by the trench. I had to fetch water.
Yes.
On my head. Before school. I loved it.
Yeah.
She taught me to cook.
On the coal pot.
On the coal pot, yes. But on the other hand, my mother gave me my creative bent. She said to me, she says, Félise, even if you're poor, you don't have to look like you're poor. She made shoes from balata. She made dresses out of flour bags during the Bay of Pigs.
Yeah.
And I'd go to school and painted dresses. I was the envy of people, and we didn't have 2 cents to rub together.
Exactly. Yeah. So it sounds as though you grew up, you had a good life. Not a life with material or money.
No.
Money, substances. You did have to work very hard.
Yes.
But you had the resources around you and the people around you and yourself, you know it's going to work out. Resilient, resourceful. Yes, Caribbean people on a whole.
Well, I'm sure.
You're an epitome of that.
They say you could make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. Well, that is so true.
Yes.
We could. Most Caribbean women do that. During the Bay of Pigs, my mom decided it was time that she got her children out because it was a very difficult time and a very dangerous time, especially with a mother with 2 girls. So I went to Barbados and my mom took my sister to London. I followed them to London a few years later, and then I decided I wanted to travel the world.
Yes.
So me and 2 girls got a Bedford van and we went around Europe. I couldn't sleep on a proper bed after that.
Yes.
And then eventually England got too cold for me, so I thought I'll go to Australia. Passed Australia House in London and they had a photo of Bondi Beach. And this was in December, so you could imagine a Caribbean girl looking at the beach in the middle of winter.
Yes.
Why am I here was the question.
Exactly.
14th of February the next year, I was on a ship.
You took a ship?
A ship. It took us 3 weeks, and I arrived in Sydney, and I never looked back.
And around what time was this? Like what year?
1967.
Okay.
I was 21. Then things got even better there. I worked there for a little while, and then I caught up with a girlfriend who had met in Barbados on a cruise. I was cruising around.
Australia.
And then decided to pull into New Zealand and discovered she was living here.
Wow.
And that's how I came here.
Yes. What was it about New Zealand where when you came you were like, this is where I want to be?
At the time, I was living close to the highway, and every morning that I woke up, if I blew my nose, it was black. But when we sailed into New Zealand, my head was hurting me from the air that I was breathing. It was so clean. I could not believe how beautiful this country was.
Yeah.
The houses were cheap, the food was cheap, the air was clean, and I thought, what's not to like about this?
Yeah.
And I came to New Zealand and I met my first husband, who was from Beckway, standing at the Air New Zealand counter because he looked like Harry Belafonte. I rocked up and I said, can you carry my bags, please?
That's the pickup line.
And he carried my bags for 7 years.
When you arrived, well, you kind of already answered this question, but did you find there were many Caribbean people?
There was the West Indian Society here, and my husband and all of his brothers were the first people to have the West Indian Cricket Club, and they used to have the best dances, the West Indian Society was flourishing.
Did that help with anything you might have missed from home, being around people that you're familiar with?
Yes, the Gyal laughing.
Yes.
Yes. And all the talk, when you say things like you're shitting in high grass, which means you're getting above yourself, kind of thing,
You're stush.
You're
That's
stush,
what we
yes.
say. Yes.
And do something like so, which means that don't treat people the way you shouldn't treat yourself.
Okay.
And when I hear the little things, we sit and we have these big belly laughs that is just so liberating. They are very conservative. And then you get this beautiful, relaxed way of living from the Caribbean, So when you're amongst your own, you can let go and you can have your big kya laugh.
But what would you say was something that was difficult for you being here?
I never have difficulties. I'm sorry, Alicia. I can honestly say, hand on heart, I was received in a gracious way because I was a little bit of a difference to them. I was a curiosity, and I don't mind being a curiosity. So I think I'm a good curiosity.
I think so too.
Yes.
I think so too.
I don't know what the hell they're saying about me behind my back, but I don't care.
Exactly.
Lines, I'm allergic to lines on my face, so.
That's why you look so good for your age.
Damn, girl. Only thing I didn't like was the cold weather.
Yeah.
But I cook up a nice cook-up rice, with some chili in it. That gives me the heat. You had to rely on people going back to the West Indies and sneaking in the pigeon peas.
What's a meal where if you're missing home, you're like, oh, I'm just going to make this? Metachi. Explain that to me. I don't know that one.
Metachi is a Guyanese dish, and it was originally from the Amerindian Indian people.
Okay.
So what you do is you peel all your ground provisions.
Especially root vegetables, and you boil them in water and coconut milk. And then when that is nearly finished, when it's boiled down, you put your fish with lots and lots of thyme in it. And I got some, what they call flat leaf thyme from Guyana growing here. So I put that
I will have that when I miss home.
I love it. Just from us chatting, I mean, I've learned that you're a very feisty woman, very passionate. You're going to talk about what you care about. You've been able to live and create that life for yourself in New Zealand. And what has it culminated to in the end? Like, what are you doing now?
I need joy, and at my age of life, I think I need to express my joy. So I started fashion designing at 73.
I love that.
And it is so liberating. I don't think I have one friend that is older than I am. All my friends are younger than I am. So I've fashion designed, and now I've launched my own fashion range called Guyanese Designs, and I create it through African fabrics because that is so joyous.
So my last question would be, what would be a piece of advice to anybody from the Caribbean, or to anybody really who wants to travel, thinking about it, hesitant, anything that you would like to say to them to encourage them?
I just think that quite often you put too many parameters around your life, and if you don't leap, you will never find a safety net. You have to leap. There's always a safety net.
Okay, so take that advice, run with it, leap. I like it. All right, so thank you very much, Félise, so much for sitting down and chatting with me. We had a lovely time. I'm gonna show you all a bit more. We go through her whole fashion line and her workshop and stuff like that. If you're interested, please go down. There's a link where you can go and see her designs. You can purchase them as well. And if not, just drop a line just saying, hey, this was so awesome. Félise, you inspire me so much. I'm going to leap. So thank you, and tune in for the next video at a later point in time. Thank you again,
Alicia.
Thank you.
The only time I ever felt really horrible was when my daddy died, and I couldn't see him anymore, and that was horrible. And then when I was put into the orphanage, that was a bad time in my life. But I very quickly managed to find other things to compensate for that sadness, and I think I learned about myself.
From a very early age.
Yes. And learned to rely on what I believed in, and always when I made my decision, I would stick with it. Whether it was right or wrong, it was right for me.
Yes. I love that.
And I don't think that you make mistakes. I think it is just an experience of what not to do, and then to get to the next thing. You know? But remember, I was born in the forest, so I faced a lot of things that were dangerous, and a sea trip was just natural.
A drop in the bucket.
Exactly.